Tech Hub for a smarter you.
If you're just joining us, this is Tech Hub, your one-stop platform for all things tech in Africa. So I had a chat with Joel Ogusola, the CEO of Prunedge, and he really gave us his perspective on what is going on in Nigeria's tech ecosystem. And I began by asking him how much tech has impacted culture in Nigeria, and the other way around, meaning how much culture has also impacted tech in Nigeria. This is how the conversation went.
So I'd love to say that culture is, I would simply define it as the way we do things today, which is, how do we go to the market? How do we take, transportation? Uber came in and Bolt and changed the culture for, alien rides, essentially. The likes of Amazon, likes of Jumia, Konga came in and also transformed, that entire narrative or that entire industry, as it were. So I'd say that technology has had a very huge impact in transforming our culture. Now, when it comes to how as culture shape technology, I'd love to say that a lot of technology solutions, as you would see them in the Western world, some of them have not worked exactly the same way, and where some of these technologies, for example, e-commerce has struggled a little bit because, I have to buy pepper, tomato, meat, there's just a communal, lifestyle and living. I go to the market, buy everything I want at once, come home for under 1 week, rather than buy on demand. And so you find out that, technology is playing catch up to culture. In some cases, we have had to localize technology to also fit into some of the cultural nuances that you have, in our societies today. Also, there are in places like across Nigeria and across Africa, language bias, language is also another cultural factor. So in some places, English, some places, French, some places, local languages. Even within Nigeria, you have communities where, English is not the daily language. And so you would have to think about, transforming or evolving your technology to fit into those language barriers. For example, with farming, where literacy level also affects, and that means that local languages is what you'll find in most of the farm locations. You realize that there's a need to adapt your solution to fit into some of the cultural nuances within those areas.
All right. So a lot of people are saying Nigeria should have advanced a whole lot when it comes to technology. All things being equal, do you think we should be where we are right now when it comes to technology and the use of tech to solve pockets of problems within our communities?
So it's two interesting questions in one. I would say very subjective questions, and the lens at which we're looking at it from would determine what the answer would be. My answer is I think Nigeria is really going as, it's developing quickly with adoption of technology. However, we need to first understand that for technology to thrive, there's a number of underlying infrastructure that is required. So you would require connectivity infrastructure, whether it's, air to air connection, or, you would have fiber, broadband connection. And so recent policies by the government around D-guns in Lagos, fiber fee waiver, right of waiver, that the federal government initiated would help to increase penetration of internet. Without penetration of internet, we won't have, massive adoption of technology. The other factor is there's a device. You need internet, you need the device. So it's like a smartphone or a laptop. Poverty level and a number of other indexes do affect our ability to access the best of devices or these devices at all. And so that would always be a factor. And that's why you find out that we are starting to evolve and shape technology to include USSD, services, voice-based, robocall services and all the likes, just ensuring that we're able to, build technology that is inclusive and captures everyone. So that growth will continue to move. I can say for a fact that we're very well ahead of a lot of African countries, very well ahead. I've been to Sierra Leone, Congo, a lot of places, and I can say we're very well ahead. We've leapfrogged in a lot of instances. Our banking sector is way advanced. In Nigeria, I can move $1 billion today electronically. In the US, I can maybe move 1,500 by Zelle at every given instant. So, very unique instances, on one hand. The other question is around if I got you correctly, why technology has not solved a number of our problems. It will always be an evolving, scenario. A lot of the problems that are very visible to us, I would say, if I were to rank them, would be problems within the public sector. So how do citizens access government services better? How do we ensure that our license process, our passport automation, our paying the electricity bills, well, that's privatized now, so we can see that it's improved extensively. How do we ensure that we can almost sit at home, get married, and even get a marriage certificate, all of those things, for example, would be key issues that we think and we believe fundamentally that technology can solve. However, there are ongoing conversations about how does technology drive public sector reform, and one of such challenges that's been identified is the capacity of our civil service, which is made up of me, you, our friends, families, parents. That civil service is the driving force of government. And so, yes, there's leadership at the top, but even when leadership says, yes, I want to automate all the process, there's that, there's the civil service. And people would say maybe there are issues around transparency, around corruption, which is why, the manual process is preferred to the automated processes. However, we can see that since COVID has come, I would love to say that things have greatly improved. We were home for months, and people suddenly realized that technology was the only way to survive. And so the awareness and understanding of the role that technology plays as an enabler rather than a disruptor, is becoming more commonplace in the public service. Also, there's a lot of investment going into helping to drive awareness around how they can evolve their job functions. Because the other bigger fear for civil servants, I served in government briefly at some point.
I wanted to ask if what your perception is about the attitude of the government to tech innovation development in Nigeria. The policies of the government for some time in Nigeria has not been, I'd say it's been a one step forward, 5 steps backwards, and the people are complaining about it. So as somebody who has been an insider and still, does his own private initiatives, what do you think the attitude is of the government?
You have the national government, you have the subnational government, and you have the local government, which, interestingly is very less spoken about, but is the key driving force at the very grassroots level. Without, being, prejudiced, I would say that at the federal level, there's been a lot of consistent effort. Could it be better? Yes. I'll probably say maybe we've seen 50% progress.
Sorry to cut it short. Effort in the right direction or effort that's retrogressive?
Some efforts in the right direction. A lot of effort, a lot of things are being done that are not being spoken about. And I think being in government helped with that. I think the government has a very poor mechanism of communicating what it's doing. I've met some of the best set of people I've ever worked with in government. When I was served in government, we leave office sometimes 10, 11 p.m. We're back again 7, 8 a.m. the next morning. But there's just a lot of challenges to solve, a lot of interdependencies. Finally, at the federal level, government is starting to get it right with policy around connectivity, the startup bill. There's a lot of bills being passed. I think this current, ninth National Assembly has done some really good work at ensuring that some of these conversations, as well as the Federal Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, and NITSDA. However, at the state level, because there is a very wide variance in the quality of the governors and quality of people who lead at that subnational level, you would find differences. So states like, I dare to say states like Ondo, Ekiti State, Nasarawa State, Edo State, Kaduna State. Kaduna has led the way in a lot of public sector reforms.
Why are you not mentioning Lagos?
With Lagos, I would say that there's been some progress, definitely. Tubosun Alake has done some very impressive work. This current last administration led by Governor Sanwo-Olu has done some really impressive work. I think that was when the Dig Once policy came up, which I think is still one of the few you have in Nigeria. So they led that way around that connectivity. But for a state like Lagos, honestly, with the population, there's just a lot more to be done. There's a lot more to be done. For smaller states like Ondo, you could easily quantify and say, I saw the government do this. But say with 20 million, citizens, those small landmass, there's also a lot of pressure on government resources. We all know that there's dwindling resources and all the likes. So I would say that, when you then weigh them, and when you look at states like Kaduna, for example, there's been a huge influx of foreign direct investment, by donors, by, multilateral organizations in just driving the state forward. And, this is due to the fact that I would say that there's the perceived notion that, the Northeast and Northwest region are excluded when it comes to a lot of things. However, I would say that Ekpa is excluded, Makoko is excluded, and a lot of Badagry is excluded. So we need equal amount of investment from multilateral partners, from government at the national level coming to all subnationals, relative to population and relative, to the economic size. That would help to drive further growth.
It's a good thing you mentioned Kaduna and the strides it's making in technology. But Nigerians will be asking how much has technology impacted the people, impacted the issues around like security and the rest of them. But that's a discussion for another day. It could stay for a long time. But let's talk about policies, Joel. Let's talk about government policies on the federal level. It's a good thing you mentioned it. You mentioned it's a bit progressive, but I must bring two policies or two issues that came to the to the floor of the lawmakers at the National Assembly. One is the issue of electronic vehicles and how much it was jettisoned and thrown away, because according to one of the lawmakers who stood up to speak on the floor, he's mentioned that Nigeria's basic income is on oil. Where do you want to throw away oil to bring about e-vehicles? And we know the situation, perennial blackouts, perennial energy crisis. You see what is happening with the fuel and the threat from Ipman that we haven't seen the mother of all Qs yet. Secondly, the issue of NITDA and the new policy on the social media, the big four social media in what's it called in Nigeria. So Nigerians are yet to recover from the October 2020/Twitter saga. I mean, I really don't know how convinced I am at you saying that it's been progressive.
Every country would have to define its own social media regulation based on global best practice. Now, these policies should not be such that clamp down on the freedom of speech, ability and freedom to share information. There needs to be caution put into ensuring that fake news and all those other things are curbed. However, it's important to understand that Nigeria is a sovereign state. And as a sovereign state as such, with over 200 million people, have, 1/3 the world's black population, I think it's important for us to start to engage. Maybe not from from a proactive standpoint around how can these social media platforms better serve the good of Nigeria? How can we drive national unity? How can we have to improve the security infrastructure? How can we curb fake news and the likes? The policy has not been finalized. It's just been teased that there's going to be some conversation around regulation. Regulation in itself is not bad if it does not impact on the ability of every citizen and every user of the platform to, to freely speak, their opinion and share their opinion and the likes, which I believe that that would be the case. Beyond that, NITDA has done incredible work, putting up infrastructure, putting up some other policies. I think that ultimately the process of policy making is also inclusive. There are going to be open town meetings. People would be able to share their feedback. It goes to National Assembly. So yes, NITDA can propose something. It eventually might not be what would be the case. National Assembly also has a role to play there. So that would be my opinion around NITDA.
But thank you so much for this conversation. We wish we had more time to continue speaking, but we hope to have you again on Tech Up to talk about the things that touches us the most, especially as technology.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Thanks for having me.
Tech Up for a smarter you.